Hi, my name is Everett. Tonight we are reading Haunted Castle on Hallows Eve, Magic Treehouse series, book number 30, A Merlin Mission. Chapter 1, All Hallows Eve. Maybe I should be a vampire instead of a princess, said Annie. She and Jack were sitting on their front porch. A cool breeze rustled the trees. Autumn leaves twirled to the ground. But you already have your princess costume, said Jack. Besides, you were a vampire last Halloween. I know, but I want to wear my big teeth again, said Annie. So wear your big teeth and be a vampire princess, said Jack. He stood up. I'm going to put on my ghoul makeup now. Grah! Oh man, said Jack. A giant black bird swooped down to the ground. The bird strutted through the fallen leaves. Its feathers glistened in the gold afternoon light. Wow, is that a crow? Said Annie. It's too big for a crow, said Jack. I think it might be a raven. A raven? Said Annie. Cool. The raven lifted its sleek head and stared at them with bright eyes. Jack held his breath. The bird hopped forward. It flapped its great black wings and lifted into the air. Then he glided into the autumn sky and headed toward the Frog Creek woods. Annie jumped up. It's a sign. Morgan's back, she said. I think you're right, said Jack. Let's go. Jack and Annie hurried across their front yard, crunching through the leaves. They ran up their street and into the Frog Creek woods. When they came to the tallest oak, they saw the rope ladder swaying in the wind. The magic treehouse was waiting for them. Just as we thought, said Annie, smiling. Jack followed her up the ladder. When they climbed inside the treehouse, they saw no sign of Morgan Le Fay, the enchantress from the kingdom of Camelot. That's weird, said Jack, looking around. The wind blew hard again, shaking the tree branches. A huge yellow leaf fluttered through the open window and came at rest at Jack's feet. Oh man, he said, look at this. What? Said Annie. Jack picked up the leaf. There was writing on it. The letters were curvy and old-fashioned. Wow, said Annie. What does it say? Jack held the leaf to the treehouse window. In the fading light, he read aloud. To Jack and Annie of Frog Creek, on All Hallows Eve, look for me in the heart of the oak. M. M, said Annie. Morgan never signs her messages with M. Right, said Jack. But Merlin does, they said together. Like when he sent us the invitation to spend Christmas in Camelot, said Annie. She pointed to the royal invitation that still lay in the corner of the treehouse. Now he's inviting us to on Halloween, said Jack. Halloween was called All Hallows Eve a long time ago. I know, said Annie. We have to go. Of course, said Jack. There was no way they could turn down an invitation to the master magician of all time. But how, do we get there? I'll bet our invitation will take us, said Annie, like when we went to King Arthur's castle on Christmas Eve. Good idea, said Jack. He pointed to the writing on the leaf. I wish we could go, to where the sleep invitation came from, said Annie. Right, said Jack. The wind began to blow. The treehouse started to spin. It spun faster and faster. Then everything was still. Absolutely still. Chapter 2, The Heart of the Oak. Jack opened his eyes. A chilly wind blew into the treehouse. Oak leaves swirled outside the window. Look at her costume, said Annie. I'm not a vampire or a princess. Jack looked at their clothes. He was wearing a knee-length pants and a tunic and tights. Annie was wearing a long dress with an apron. Camelot costumes, Jack said softly. They looked out the window together. They were high in a huge oak tree in a thick forest. The afternoon sun was low in the autumn sky. So what do we do now? Said Jack. The invitation said we're supposed to meet Merlin in the heart of the oak, said Jack. Yeah, but what does that mean? Said Jack, scowling. The heart of the oak. Let's go down and try to figure it out, said Annie. She carefully placed the invitation in the corner of the treehouse. Then she and Jack climbed down the rope ladder, then stepped onto the leafy ground. In the fading daylight, they began circling the giant oak. They walked all the way around until they came to the rope ladder again. We're back where we started, said Jack. We never found the heart. Wait a minute, said Annie. What's that? She pointed to a long, thin crack in the bark of the tree trunk. A silver light seemed to be coming from the crack. Jack touched the bark around the light. He pushed. The crack got bigger. It's a secret door, said Jack. He pushed harder. Creak! A tall, narrow door swung into the tree. Light streamed from inside. We found it, whispered Annie. The heart of the oak. Jack nodded. Let's go in, said Annie. She slipped through the narrow doorway into a bright hollow of the tree trunk. Jack couldn't believe his eyes. The round room was lit with hundreds of candles. Shadows danced on the curved brown walls. This is impossible, said Jack. The heart of the oak seemed much bigger than the tree itself. Welcome, said a deep, whispery voice. They turned around and saw an old man sitting in the carved wooden chair. He had a long beard and wore a red cloak. Hi, Merlin, said Annie. Hello, Annie. Hello, Jack. It is good to see you again, said the magician. I am grateful for the help you gave us on Christmas Eve. Now Morgan and I believe you might be able to help us again. We'd love to, said Annie. The whole future of our kingdom depends on your successes, said Merlin. Are you sure you want us? Asked Jack. I mean, we're just kids. You have passed many tests for Morgan, said Merlin. Are you not master librarians and magicians of everyday magic? Jack nodded. Yes, we are, he said. Good, you will need all your skills on this mission, said Merlin. You will also need a helper and guide from our world, the world of magic and legend. Are you coming with us? Asked Annie. No, said the magician. Your guide shall be one much younger than I. He is in my library now. Yesterday he brought me some books I had requested from Morgan's library. Merlin rose from his chair. Come, he said, leading them to a door in the curved wall. He opened it and stepped into another room. Jack and Annie followed him. The musty room was filled with scrolls and ancient-looking books. Sitting on the floor was a boy about 11 or 12 years old. He was reading by the light of a lantern. Your helper and guide, said Merlin to Jack and Annie. The boy looked up. He had a friendly, freckled face with dark, twinkling eyes. He broke into a grin. Arf, arf, he said. Teddy, cried Annie. Jack couldn't believe it. The helper was the young sorcerer who had been training as Morgan's apprentice. Merlin for once looked surprised. You already know each other? He asked. Yes, we met a while ago when I accidentally changed myself into a dog, said Teddy. Morgan wanted to teach Teddy a lesson, Annie explained. So she sent him with us on 4 treehouse journeys before he changed him back into a boy. He saved us on the Titanic and saved us from a buffalo stampede and a tiger in India, said Jack, and a forest fire in Australia. Wondrous journeys indeed, said Merlin. I am glad you are already friends. Your friendship may help you on this mission. What is our mission? Asked Danny. You are now in one of the outlying realms of Camelot, said Merlin. Beyond these woods lies a castle of a duke. Merlin leaned forward as if he were about to tell something really scary. It will be your mission, he said, to bring order to the duke's castle. Merlin sat back in his chair. His gaze was calm, but a fierce light shone in his eyes. Bring order to a castle? Thought Jack. Is that all? Who messed it up, sir? Asked Danny. You will find out soon enough, said Merlin. We accept our assignment gladly, said Teddy. The mission will be done without fail. Merlin fixed his gaze on Teddy. Perhaps, he said, but a warning, my boy. You are hasty and careless with your magic arms. And on this mission you must choose all your words wisely. Indeed I will, said Teddy. Merlin turned to Jack and Annie. And a warning to you, too, he said. You are about to enter a tunnel of fear. Proceed onward with courage, and you will come out into the light. Tunnel of fear? Jack thought. Merlin picked up the lantern and handed it to Teddy. The Duke's castle lies to the east. Go quickly, he said. Order must be restored as soon as possible. Teddy nodded at Merlin. Then he turned to Jack and Annie. To the Duke's castle, he said, and he led them out of the heart of the oak. Chapter 3. Rock. It was cooler outside. Daylight was fading quickly. The wind had picked up. A grand adventure waits us all. Eh? Said Teddy. Yes, said Annie. Jack was excited too, but he had lots of questions. As Teddy started off through the oak forest, Jack hurried to keep up. What do you think our mission is exactly? He asked. Merlin said we should bring order to the castle, said Annie. Perhaps he wants us to mop the floors and wash the dishes, Teddy joked. And make the beds, said Annie. She and Teddy laughed. Our mission has to be harder than just doing chores, said Jack. What about the tongue of fear? Oh, you need not be afraid of fear, said Teddy. I know magic, remember? Teddy, did you know any magic before you met Morgan and Merlin? Asked Annie. Indeed. My father was a sorcerer, said Teddy, and my mother was a wood sprite from the other world. That is so cool, said Jack. They crunched through piles of dead leaves. A gust of wind shook the branches. Golden leaves spun to the ground. Jack's thoughts were spinning too. Merlin in the heart of the oak, sorcerers, wood sprites, none of these things would ever make sense back in Frog Creek. At last, Teddy led them out of the forest and into a clearing. Halt, he said. They all stopped walking. Beyond the clearing Beyond the clearing was a small village of thatched roof cottages. The cottage windows twinkled with candlelight. Chimney smoke rose into the dusky sky. Teddy held up his lantern. Onward, he said. Then they went down a dirt path that passed through the village. Several children in ragged clothes peeked out their front doors. Greeting, called Teddy. Can you tell us how to get to the castle of the Duke? The castle? A boy said in a frightened voice. It's just beyond the wood. He pointed to the other side of the village. Follow that path and you'll come to it. Oh, but you mustn't go there, cried a girl. Why not? Asked Annie. Something's been very wrong, the girl said, ever since the ravens came. Has anyone been there to see what's going on? Asked Jack. Only old Maggie who used to work there, said the girl. 2 weeks ago, she went to the castle as usual, but she came running back, scared out of her wits. Old Maggie said it is all haunted with ghosts, said a boy. She keeps repeating the same rhyme over and over. Jack's mouth felt dry. Ghosts, he said. But Teddy just laughed. Ghosts don't scare me, he said. Have you ever seen one, Teddy? Asked Annie. No, but I should like to, he said with a grin. Look, one of the girls pointed to the sky. The ravens are back. A flock of large black birds was flying low in the dark gray sky. The village kids screamed. Several grown-ups rushed out of their cottages. Go away, a woman yelled. She picked up a handful of stones and began throwing them at the birds. Leave us alone! Stop, stop, cried Annie. You'll hurt them. A stone struck one of the ravens. It fell to the ground. Oh, no, cried Annie. The grown-ups pulled their children inside. Doors slammed and shutters closed. Annie dashed to a fallen bird and knelt beside it. Jack and Teddy hurried over to Annie and the fallen bird. The bird was crouching slightly, spreading its wings. Its head was bowed as it made low squeaking sounds. One of its tail feathers was bent. Coo, coo, Teddy said loudly. He looked at Jack. I once journeyed to the Isle of Birds to study their language, he said. I learned a bit of dove, but no raven. Don't worry, said Jack. Annie talks to birds and animals in her own language. I'm sorry for what they did to you, said Annie softly to the raven. She stroked its silky black head. What's your name? Rock, the raven croaked. Rock, your name is Rock? Said Annie. Rock, Rock. See, I told you, Jack said to Teddy. Rock, they were afraid of you for some reason, said Annie. Rock made soft bell-like sounds. Crong, crong. Yes, that's why they knocked you out of the sky, said Annie. One of your tail feathers is bent, but your wings don't seem hurt. Rock fluttered his long black wings. He took a few feeble steps. Go on, Rock, you can do it, Annie coaxed. Then the raven flapped its wings again. Cork, he croaked, lifted off the ground. Great, said Annie, clapping. Rock flapped his wings. He glided up into the twilight. He swooped down with ease back down to Annie. Caw, caw, he said. He called as if thanking her. Be careful, Rock, Annie shouted. They all waved as the raven sailed off into the sky. Annie smiled at Jack and Teddy. He was really nice, she said. Indeed he was, said Teddy. I think your gentle words were healing to him. I wonder why the people here are so afraid of ravens, said Annie. Yes, said Jack. And what was that stuff about ghosts? Ghosts, said Teddy. He smiled. You needn't fear ghosts if you're with me. Jack shrugged. I'm not really afraid, he said. Not afraid? Jack, said a feeble voice. Jack, Annie, and Teddy whirled around. An old woman stood in the dark entrance of a cottage. She leaned forward. In a cracked voice, she said, Where are the girls with woven thread? Where are the boys who play chess before bed? Where's the hound who waits to be fed? The old woman stared at them with a fearful look in her eyes. Then she stepped back into her cottage and closed the door. A shiver went up Jack's spine. That was strange, he said. She must have been old Maggie who used to work at the castle, said Annie. I wonder what she was talking about. I don't know, said Teddy. Then he grinned. But she was good at rhyming, eh? Jack nodded. Indeed she was, he said softly. Let's hurry along, said Teddy. Night comes fast upon us. Leaving the cottages behind, the three hurried on in the gathering dark. They left the village and followed the path through the woods. Teddy held his lantern to light their way. The wind blew the branches to making them whisper in the chilly autumn night. When they finally came out of the woods, they all gasped in wonder. Oh man, said Jack. Towering before them in the moonlight were the walls of a huge stone castle. Chapter 4. The Castle. The castle was still and silent. No candles burned in its windows. No guards stood at its gatehouse. No archers patrolled the tops of its walls. Hello, Teddy shouted. No one answered. Not very well protected, hey? Said Teddy. Our mission should be easy. Yeah, said Annie. Jack didn't say anything. He would have felt happier if the guards had been protecting the castle. That would have seemed more normal. Come along, said Teddy. Jack and Annie followed Teddy over a wooden bridge to the great gatehouse. Teddy held up his lantern before the arched double doors. Cobwebs sparkled in the mist light. Hello, may we enter? He called. Silence. They all stared at the heavy wooden doors. Never fear, I shall get us in, said Teddy. The boy sorcerer put down his lantern. He took a deep breath. He rubbed his hands together. Then he stretched out his arms and shouted, Open ye two oaken doors. He looked at Jack and Annie. Quick, what rhymes with doors? Floors, said Jack. Good, said Teddy. He opened his arms again and yelled, Open ye two oaken doors, or we will not mop up your floors. Nothing happened. Jack looked at Jack and Annie. Bad rhyme, he said. Annie frowned and nodded. Are you sure they're even locked, said Jack. Let's see, said Annie. She pushed on the door. Jack pushed on the other. Slowly the doors creaked open. Creak! Ah, brilliant, said Teddy with a laugh. Shall we? He held out his lantern and waved Jack and Annie through the open doors. The castle gatehouse was cold and empty. Jack could see his breath in the sharp air. He heard a creak. They all turned to look. The heavy doors moved by themselves and closed with a thump. They all stared at the doors for a moment. Then Teddy broke the silence. "Interesting," he said cheerfully. Jack tried to smile. "Indeed, interesting," he said. He shivered. He couldn't tell if it was from cold or from fright. Now, he wondered, now are we entering the tunnel of fear? "Onward," said Teddy. He led them through the empty gatehouse onto a shadowy castle grounds. There were no sign of life anywhere, Jack thought. Jack thought of the old woman's rhyme. "Where is the girl who spins wool in the thread? Where are the boys who play chess before bed? Where is the hound who waits to be fed?" Jack wondered what the rhyme could mean. What girl? What boys? What hound? Teddy crossed the courtyard to the entrance of a large building. Jack and Annie quickly followed him. Teddy held up his lantern so they could see inside. There were rows of clean, empty stalls. Saddles and bridles hung from pegs on the walls. Hay was piled high in the corners. "Must be the stables," said Jack. "But no horses," said Annie. "No matter, 'tis orderly," said Teddy. "Onward!" He led them through to the open doorway of another building. Teddy's lantern shone on a brick oven, a stone hearth, baskets of apples, strings of onions hanging on rafters. "The kitchen," said Jack. "But no cooks or servants," said Annie. "No matter, 'tis orderly," said Teddy. "Onward!" As they wandered through the moonlit courtyard, Jack looked to his right and his left. He glanced behind them. If there are ghosts, he thought, what do they look like? Halloween ghosts in sheets? See-through people like in the movies? He stopped. "Hey, guys," he whispered loudly. Wait a minute. "What is it?" said Annie. Jack pushed his glasses into place. "Are we just going to keep wandering from building to building?" he said. "What's our strategy here?" "Strategy?" asked Teddy. "Jack means we should make a plan," said Annie. "Ah, indeed," said Teddy. "Excellent idea." "A plan, yes," he grinned. "How do we do that?" "Well, first we ask ourselves, where exactly are we going?" said Jack. Teddy looked about. He pointed to a tower rising above the courtyard. "There," he said. "The keep. 'Tis where the family lives, the Duke and Duchess." "Great," said Jack. "Now what will we do when we get there?" "Climb the stairs to each floor," said Teddy. "Have a look around. And if we see anything that's not orderly, we'll tidy up," said Annie. "Excellent," said Teddy. "And then?" asked Jack. "We leave," said Teddy. "Our mission done." Jack nodded. This wasn't much of a plan or a mission, he thought, but he liked the leaving part. He hoped that happened before any ghosts showed up. "Okay," he said, holding his lantern to light their way. Teddy led them through to the entrance of the castle keep. He pushed open a wooden door, and they all stepped inside. Dark figures loomed against the stone walls. "Ah!" Jack cried. He jumped back, bumping into Annie. Annie laughed. "It's only our shadows," she said. Jack felt silly. "Right. Sorry," he said. He took a deep breath. "Okay, let's find the stairway." "Hey," said Teddy. He started walking slowly down a dark passage. Jack and Annie followed him close behind. There it was damp. Jack's heart was pounding. Now, he wondered, now are we entering the tunnel of fear? A moaning sound came through the passageway. Then a loud bang. "Yikes," said Annie. She and Jack grabbed each other. Teddy laughed. "'Twas only the shutters banging," he said. "What about that moaning?" asked Jack. "'Twas only the wind blowing through the crannies," said Teddy. Jack took another deep breath and kept going. Soon they came to a twisting stairway. "The stairs," said Annie. "Good," thought Jack. Climbing the stairway was a solid part of their plan. "Shall we?" said Teddy. "Indeed, upward," said Jack, trying to sound like Teddy. Teddy held up his lantern and started up the steep stone stairs. Jack and Annie followed. They climbed around and around the twisting stairway. When they came to the first landing, Teddy led them to the doorway of a room. They peeked and they saw rows of helmets, breastplates, gauntlets, shields, spears, and swords. The armor room," said Jack. "Hey," said Teddy. "Everything looks in order here." said Annie. Jack nodded. He liked the order in the room. It made him feel safer. Shall we keep going? Said Teddy. Of course, said Jack. He was starting to feel a lot braver now. They returned to the stairway and began climbing again. On the third floor, they peered through an arched entrance into a huge room. Teddy used his lantern from his lantern to light torches on either side of the doorway. In the flickering light, Jack saw a high ceiling and walls hung with tapestries. It's the great hall, he said, where they have feasts and stuff. Let's look around, said Annie. See if anything seems out of order. As the three of them slowly walked forward, Jack kept an eye out for ghosts. Teddy held up his lantern. It shone on a long banquet table. Aha, he said. The table was littered with breadcrumbs, candle wax, and dead petals of dead flowers. The floor near the table was messy too, with bits of food and meat bones. Finally, we found something to put in order, said Teddy. Shall we? Jack caught sight of a straw broom in the corner. Sure, I'll sweep, he said. I'll clear the table, said Annie. I'll scrape the wax, said Teddy. Jack grabbed the straw broom and began sweeping the floor around the table. He swept up apple peelings, fish bones, and bits of eggshell and old cheese. As he swept everything into a neat pile, he felt good. They were finally carrying out their mission. We're bringing order to the castle, just like Merlin told us to, Jack thought. Soon we can leave. Suddenly, Annie screamed. Jack dropped his broom and whirled around. Look! Cried Annie, her eyes wide. She pointed toward a stone hearth at the other end of the great hall. In front of the hearth, a large white bone hovered in the air. It bobbed up and down. Then it began floating straight toward them. Chapter 5. Ghosts. Ah! Yelled Teddy. Ah! Yelled Jack. Ah! Yelled Annie. Still screaming, they all ran toward the door. The bone came after them. Teddy led the way as they tore through the archway and scrambled up the winding staircase. Jack looked behind them. It's still coming, he shrieked. Ah! They all screamed again. On the next landing, Teddy charged into a nearby room and make haste, he yelled. He pulled Jack and Annie into a room and slammed the door behind them. Out of breath, they all leaned against the door, panting and trembling. Safe, Teddy gasped. Safe from the bone. Then he started laughing. Jack laughed too. He laughed out of sheer terror. He couldn't stop laughing. Listen, guys, listen, said Annie. I hear a noise. Teddy stopped laughing. Jack clapped his hand over his mouth. He listened. He heard a faint clicking sound, but he couldn't see anything. Teddy used his lantern from his... Teddy used the fire from his lantern to light torches out near the doorway. Then they all looked around. Looks like a nursery, said Teddy. The torches showed on a kid's room. The room had 3 small beds. Wooden toys were scattered across the floor. A long white curtain fluttered from an open window. The clicking noise seemed to be coming from a dark corner. What is that? Whispered Jack. What's that? Whispered Annie. She started toward the noise. Jack and Teddy followed her. Teddy held up his lantern. His light shone on a child-sized spinning wheel. It sat in the corner near a basket of wool and a tall, dusty mirror. The spinning wheel was spinning thread, but no one was touching it. It was spinning all by itself. Look, whispered Annie. She pointed to a low table near the spinning wheel. On the table was a chessboard. Large wooden chess pieces sat on the squares of the board, but some of the pieces weren't just sitting. As Jack, Annie, and Teddy watched, a horse piece slowly slid from one square to another. A queen piece did the same. Yikes, said Annie. Go, said Teddy. Let's get out of here, said Jack. They bolted across the room. Teddy threw open the door. The white bone was hanging in the air right outside the door. Ah! They all screamed again. Teddy slammed the door shut. They huddled together, afraid to leave and afraid to stay. Jack's heart was beating wildly. He couldn't breathe. I thought you weren't afraid of ghosts, he said to Teddy, gasping. Well, yes, I believe I just discovered that I am, said Teddy. What do we do, said Jack. Run, said Teddy. He gave Annie his lantern. Then he threw out his arms and started to run. Spirits of earth and air. He looked at Jack and Annie. Quick, what rhymes with air? Bear, said Jack. Teddy shook his head. I fear bear might make things worse. Jack tried hard to think of a better word to rhyme with it. Wait a minute, said Annie. I get it now. I get it. She grinned at Jack and Teddy. Has she lost her mind? Wondered Jack. Remember what old Maggie said? Asked Annie. Then she recited. Where's the girl who spins a wool in a thread? She pointed at the spinning wheel at the corner. In the corner. There she is, she said. She's spinning at the wheel. Annie recited more. Where are the boys who play chess before bed? Annie pointed to the chess table. There they are, said Annie. They're probably her brothers. They're playing chess. Then she recited more. Where's the hound who waits to be fed? Annie threw open the door to the nursery. The bone was still hanging in the air. Jack and Teddy went back in fear. Don't be afraid, said Annie. It's just a hound. A dog, a hound. He's carrying a bone in his mouth. Don't you see? The girl, the boys, the hound, they're all here. They're just invisible. Chapter 6, Merlin's Diamond. Jack and Teddy were speechless. They kept staring at Annie as she got down on her knees and talked to the invisible dog. Hi, you, she said softly. Are you hungry? The bone dropped to the floor. It flipped over, then rocked from side to side. See? Annie said to Jack and Teddy. Now he's rolling on his back with his bone in his mouth. Poor thing. Poor thing, said Jack. We have to help him, said Annie. She stood up. We have to help them too, the girl and her brothers. She hurried across the room. Jack and Teddy followed. Annie stopped at the small spinning wheel. We can't see you, but we're not afraid of you, said Annie. We want to help you. Can you hear me? The spinning wheel stopped spinning. She can hear us, Annie said to Jack and Teddy. Annie turned back to the ghost girl. What happened to you and your brothers and your dog and everyone else in the castle? How did you all become invisible? Jack felt a cold air whoosh past him. I think she's moving, said Annie. Hey, said Teddy, to the looking glass. See? An invisible finger had begun to write something in the thick dust of the mirror. 4 words slowly appeared. Diamond of Destiny stolen. I can't believe it, said Teddy. This must be the secret castle that guards the Diamond of Destiny. What's that? Said Jack. A magic diamond that belongs to Merlin, said Teddy. It was set in the very hand of King Arthur pulled from a stone many years ago. Oh, I know that story, said Annie. That's how Arthur became king. Yes, said Teddy. And someday the Diamond of Destiny will give the same strength and power to the next rightful ruler of Camelot. That's what Merlin must have meant when he said the future of Camelot depends on us, said Annie. Indeed, said Teddy. Wait, said Jack. I'm confused. What does the Diamond of Destiny have to do with invisible kids and dogs? After Arthur became king, Merlin gave the diamond to a noble family of Camelot, said Teddy. The name of the family was kept secret. As long as the family kept the diamond safe, they would have good fortune. But should they fail to protect it, they would fade from life. Oh, so the family let the diamond get stolen, said Annie. And now they've all turned into ghosts. Precisely, said Teddy. I wonder where the diamond was kept, said Jack. Good question, said Teddy. Certainly some special hiding place, perhaps in one of the towers. Guys, look, said Annie. She pointed to a wall near the mirror. A long, heavy tapestry had been pulled aside to reveal a small door in the stone wall. The door was slowly swinging open. "The ghost girl," said Amy. "She's showing us this diamond secret hiding place." The three of them hurried to the stone wall and looked inside the tiny cabinet. The walls of the cabinet were made of golden ivory, but the cabinet was empty. Annie looked around. "Ghost girl," she said, who stole the diamond of destiny from its hiding place?" Letters began to appear on the mirror again. In a thick dust, an invisible finger wrote, "The Raven." "Oh no," whispered Teddy. "Please no." Jack felt a fresh wave of fear. "Oh no, please no, what?" he said. "Wait," said Teddy, pointing at the mirror. The finger wrote one more word, "King." "Just as I feared," said Teddy in a hushed voice. "The Raven King." Chapter 7. 1, 2, 3. "So that's why Merlin sent for those books," said Teddy. "What books? Who's the Raven King?" said Jack. "Now it all makes sense," said Teddy. "Who's the Raven King?" said Jack. "But I wonder how we find the Diamond of Destiny," said Teddy. "Teddy, who's the Raven King?" Jack nearly shouted. He's a terrifying creature who comes from the other world," said Teddy. "I read all about him in one of the books I brought Merlin from Morgan's library. As a boy, the Raven King longed to be a bird so he could fly. He stole a spell from the Wizard of Winter, but he didn't have the magic to make it work properly. So the spell only worked halfway. It made him half bird and half human." "Oh man," said Jack. "Now he commands a huge army of ravens who treats them as their king," said Teddy. "Why would he steal the Diamond of Destiny?" asked Danny. "I don't know," said Teddy. But we must get it back, for the sake of Camelot's future, and for the sake of these ghost kids too," said Annie, "and the ghost dog." She looked around the room. "Don't worry," she called. We'll help you. We'll help all of you. We'll get the Diamond of Destiny back." We will," said Jack. "How?" "We don't know where this crazy Raven man lives, or look, riding," whispered Teddy. "She heard you." 3 more words slowly appeared in the mirror nest. "Nest on mountaintop." Jack felt a cold air whoosh by him again. The curtain covering the window moved aside. A patch of moonlight shone on the floor. Jack, Annie, and Teddy walked to the window and looked out. In the distance, a craggy mountain rose into the moonlit sky. "Ah," whispered Teddy. There goes the Raven King. I had thought his nest was in the other world." "It might as well be," said Jack. "He'll never be able to climb to the top of that mountain." "Hey," said Teddy, "no mere mortal can climb that steep rock." "How will he get the diamond back?" cried Annie. "I said no mere mortal," said Teddy. "I'm more than a mortal, remember? I'm a sorcerer." "Yeah, but your rhymes never work," said Annie. "True, but I'm more than just rhymes," said Teddy. He pulled a twig from his pocket. "See? What's that?" said Jack. "'Tis an enchanted hazel twig," said Teddy. "Its magic is strong enough to change me into anything I want." "Oh, wow," said Annie. "Did Morgan give you that?" asked Jack. "No," said Teddy. "Morgan and Merlin do not even know I have it. A forest sprite, a cousin of my mother's, gave it to me in case I was ever in urgent need." "So what do you want to change into?" asked Annie. "A raven." "Of course," said Teddy. "Teddy's crazy," thought Jack, but Annie didn't seem to think so. "What a cool idea," she said. "They're both crazy," thought Jack. "It's cool indeed," said Teddy. He held up his twig. "Wait a minute," said Jack. "Do you have a plan? I mean, what are you going to do once you change into a raven?" "I shall fly up to the mountain nest," said Teddy. "Find the diamond, bring it back. Mission done." "What do we do?" asked Annie. "Wait for me here. I'll be back as soon as I can," said Teddy. He climbed up onto the window ledge. The moonlight shone. His moon shadows stretched across the floor. "Good luck," said Annie. "Thank you," said Teddy. He raised the hazel twig. "Stop," said Jack. "Can we discuss your plan a little more?" But Teddy was already sweeping the hazel twig through the air. He waved it from the top of his head to the tips of his toes. "Teddy, stop," said Jack. But Teddy started his rhyme. Oh, hazel twig from hazel tree, make me a raven. Quick, he said, a word that rhymes with tree. Wait, said Jack. Doesn't rhyme with tree, said Teddy. 3, said Annie. Brilliant, said Teddy. He started again. Oh, hazel twig from hazel tree, make me a raven. 1, 2, 3. He waved the twig wildly. Careful, he said. He ducked and covered his head. Suddenly he heard a blast of heat, then he heard a strange screech. Jack looked up. Teddy's hazel twig had fallen to the floor. Jack saw Teddy's shadow on the floor too, but it was no longer a shadow of a boy. A chill went through Jack. A large raven was perched on the windowsill. Moonlight shone on its sleek blue-black wings, its shaggy throat feathers, its thick neck, and its beak. A second raven stood beneath the window. It looked like the first, only smaller. Where's Annie? Jack wondered wildly. He tried calling her name, but a terrible croak came from the back of his throat. Me! Jack felt as if he were caught in a terrible nightmare. With jerky turns of his head, he peered down his own body. His arms had turned into jet black wings. His legs were spindly twigs that ended in 4 long toes with curved claws. Teddy had accidentally changed them all into ravens. 1, 2, 3. Chapter 8. Spree, spree. Craw-jaw, craw-knee, Teddy croaked. Teddy was speaking raven now, but Jack understood him perfectly. Teddy had said, sorry, Jack and Annie. Annie stepped forward. She fluttered to the window ledge and perched with Teddy. Clark, she croaked. That's okay. This is fun. Clark? Jack squeaked. Fun? Grow-jaw, croaked Annie. Caspree. Come on, Jack, let's fly. Annie and Teddy lifted off the ledge and disappeared into the moonlight mist. This can't be real, thought Jack. It can't be real. He looked at his feathers, and claws. He stretched out his right wing and then his left. He flapped them both. Before he knew what was happening, he lifted clumsily off the floor and landed on the window ledge. Jack saw Annie and Teddy flying around in the moonlight. They were zipping about like acrobats, diving and tumbling through the air. Up knee, caught, Jack croaked. Annie, come back. Spree, spree, she called. Fly, fly. Up knee. Annie rose from the dive. Then, in one easy swoop, she glided up and sat beside Jack on the window ledge. This is so much fun, Jack, she croaked. Don't just sit here. Teddy flew by them. I'm going off to the mountaintop, he croaked. Fly with me. Come on, Jack, croaked Annie. She took a deep breath. She took off after Teddy, swooping through the cool night air. Oh man, fear clutched that Jack's small raven heart. I have definitely entered the tunnel of fear now. He thought. Merlin's words echoed through his mind. Proceed onward with courage, and you will come out into the light. Jack looked out at the night. He closed his eyes. He jumped off the ledge. Jack was falling. He opened his eyes. He flapped his wings. His wings lifted him. He steadied himself. He hovered in the cool night air. His eyes darted from right to left. He looked down. He nearly fainted. The courtyard was far below. Jack flapped wildly. He glided. He flapped again. He glided. Flapping and gliding, he climbed higher and higher into the sky. Finally, Jack caught up with Annie and Teddy. They were circling in the air waiting for him. Rourke! Jack croaked. Onward! The three of them flew together through the moonlit night, heading for the nest of the Raven King. Except for the swooshing of their wings, they made no noise. They soared up the side of the mountain, past hemlocks and tall pines. They flew through long misty clouds. As they glided toward the mountain's peak, Teddy let out a low croak. Raven troops. Jack peered through the night. He couldn't believe his eyes. In the white moonlight, he saw thousands of roosting ravens on rocky ledges. Jack, Annie, and Teddy kept flying. They soared up above their troops, higher and higher toward the craggy peak of the mountain. When they reached the top, Teddy let out a squawk. "There it is," he croaked, "the nest of the Raven King." Chapter 9. A Piece of a Star. Teddy dropped down to a ledge. Jack and Annie followed. Hidden in the shadows, they crouched together, their dark feathers touching. They peered up at the moonlit lair of the Raven King. The king's giant nest was tucked under a rocky overhang. It was made of mud, twigs, and long strips of bark. 2 raven sentries were guarding its dark entrance. "Okay," Jack softly croaked. "What's the plan?" "Listen carefully," Teddy answered. In tiny squeaks and caws of raven whispers, he spelled out a plan. "I'll distract the guards. Annie, you keep watch of the entrance. Jack, you go into the nest and get the diamond. Then both of you head back to the castle and wait for me there." "What about the Raven King?" Jack croaked. "I sense he's not here yet," croaked Teddy. "I see no legions or bodyguards, but we should hurry before he returns." Jack had lots more questions about the plan, but before he could ask them, Teddy lifted off the perch and flew toward the entrance. "Let's go!" cried Annie, rising into the air. Jack was in a panic. He fluffed out his feathers and croaked, "Wait, you guys!" But it was too late. Teddy was already dive-bombing the raven sentries. Arc, arc, arc! The 2 sentries left their watch and flew at Teddy with short shrieks. They chased him high into the sky, and he zipped to the entrance of the nest. "Come on, Jack," she croaked. Jack jumped off the ledge and flew onto the giant nest. Without thinking, he stepped through the entrance. He jerked his head from side to side. With his raven sight, he saw walls packed with dried mud, animal fur, vines, and sticks. The floor was covered with moss. Jack took a few steps forward. He stopped and he saw no sign of the Raven King. He cocked his head from side to side, listening. All was quiet. Jack looked around the nest. One part of the nest looked different. It was black and shiny. He stepped toward it. He touched it with his beak. It wasn't a wall at all. It was a curtain of feathers. Jack pushed through the curtain. Moonlight shone into the space behind it. Heaps of gold and silver coins glittered in the cool light. Pale pearls, emeralds, and rubies shone and sparkled. Amid all the treasure was a blue-white crystal. It was no bigger than a marble, but it shone with a light all its own, like a piece of a star. Jack knew at once it was the diamond of destiny. His raven heart thumping, he walked toward the diamond and nudged it with his beak. As the diamond tilted, it shot forth some beams of brilliant light. "Jack, Jack!" Annie was calling from outside. "Creak, go! They're coming!" Jack carefully picked up the diamond with his beak. He felt a surge of strength and courage. Annie called another warning, but Jack wasn't afraid at all. He calmly walked out of the Raven King's nest, back into the moonlight. More sentries had been alerted. They were flying toward the mountaintop, cawing madly in alarm. Crack, crack, crack! Jack saw Annie perched on the ledge. "Hurry, Jack, hurry!" she croaked. Annie flew off the mountain. Holding the diamond of destiny, Jack gracefully flapped his wings and lifted into the air after her. As he and Annie sailed down from the mountain top, a chorus of cracks split the night. Thousands of roosting ravens rose into the sky like a giant black cloud. Their beating wings rumbled like thunder. The cloud of ravens covered the light of the moon. The night was completely black. "Spree, spree!" Annie croaked. "Fly, fly!" Jack and Annie glided down through the dark sky toward the Duke's castle. The wing beats of the raven army still thundered above the mountaintop, but none of the ravens were chasing them. They don't know what to do without their king, Jack thought. He wondered where their king was, but with a diamond of destiny in his beak, he felt no fear. The farther Jack and Annie flew from the mountain, the more distant became the sounds of the soldiers' wings. The Duke's castle came into sight. Jack saw the the light of Teddy's lantern in the nursery, but he didn't want to stop flying just yet. Instead, he swooped over the castle keep, over the courtyard, the gatehouse, the bridge, over the candlelit cottages in the oak forest, and he flew with him. Finally, they both glided smoothly back to the castle and landed on the window ledge of the nursery. The Diamond of Destiny was safe. Chapter 10. Where is it? Jack and Annie perched on the ledge and peered into the nursery. Teddy's lantern and Hazel twig were on the floor, but there was no sign of Teddy. "Teddy's not here yet," croaked Annie. Let's go ahead and put the diamond back in its place." Jack didn't move. He didn't want to give up the diamond quite yet. It still made him feel incredibly brave. "Jack," croaked Annie, "let's put the diamond back in its place. I'll move the tapestry." Annie flapped to the long tapestry hanging on the wall. Fluttering in the air, she took its edge in her beak. She tried to pull it aside, but it was too heavy. She let go. "I can't move it," she croaked. "No, not as long as I'm a raven. I guess we'll have to wait for Teddy to change back into ourselves." She flapped to the window ledge and landed beside Jack. Jack was relieved. The longer he could hold on to the diamond, the better. "Hey," croaked Annie, "maybe we could use Teddy's magic hazel twig ourselves. I can come up with better rhymes than him anyway. It won't hurt to try." Jack shook his head, but Annie didn't notice. She hopped down to the hazel twig under the window. She carefully picked it up with her beak. She fluttered back to the window ledge beside Jack. Then she moved her head from side to side, passing the twig over Jack's feathered head, his body, his wings, and his claws. The hazel twig passed over her feathers, body, and wings as well. With the twig in her beak, she made deep croaking sounds. "Ha ha, ree ree, ja ja, Agni! Oh, hazel twig from hazel tree, make him Jack and make me!" There was a mighty roar, a flash of light, and a blast of heat. Then Jack heard Annie giggle. "Yippee! I made the magic work! Look!" Jack looked down at his arms and legs and feet. "Oh man," he breathed. Agni and Ja were gone. Annie and Jack were back. Jack wiggled his fingers and toes. He felt his face, his mouth, his nose, his ears. He loved having his own body back. "Teddy's going to be so surprised," said Annie. "He acts like he's the only kid who can do magic." She looked around the nursery. "Hi, we're back," she called to the invisible children. "Guess what? We've got the diamond." "The diamond? Where is it?" said Jack. "I must have dropped it when you changed us back into ourselves." Suddenly, they heard a swooshing and flapping at the window. "Teddy!" cried Annie. She and Jack whirled around, but Teddy wasn't there. Instead, perched on the nursery window was a horrifying creature. It was part human and part raven. It had silky feathers for hair, a beak for a nose, sharp claws, and a billowing feathered cape that glistened in the moonlight like shiny black armor. "Good evening," said the Raven King. Chapter 11, or else. Jack and Annie were too stunned to speak. Stared at the bizarre creature, Jack remembered the story of the Raven King, how he had wanted to be a bird, how he had stolen a spell from the ice wizard of winter, how the spell only worked halfway and left him half bird and half human. The Raven King jumped from the window to the floor. One by one, his raven bodyguards swooshed into the room after him. At least 20 ravens came through the window. Soon, Jack and Annie were surrounded by dark wings, sharp beaks, and bright eyes. Once his guards were in place, the Raven King twisted his head from side to side, looking from Jack to Annie. "Where are the 2 ravens who stole my diamond?" he asked it in a raspy voice. "What diamond?" asked Annie. What ravens?" asked Jack, his voice trembling. He wished desperately that they still had the Diamond of Destiny to give him strength and courage. "The ravens who came to my castle after raiding my treasure," said the Raven King. "Where are they hiding?" Jack tried to imagine he was still holding the diamond. We don't know anything about them, he said in a low, steady voice, pretending to hold the diamond actually made him feel brave. You don't know anything about them? Said the Raven King. No, said Jack. You must have the wrong castle. Ah, the wrong castle, said the Raven King. Yes, said Jack. Perhaps you're right, said the Raven King. But are you certain you haven't seen them? They look very much like this one here. The Raven King threw his cape over his shoulder and held up an iron bird cage. A raven was held captive inside. Ja, at me, the raven croaked. Teddy, cried Annie. His name is Teddy, said the Raven King. How charming. I've caught a Teddy. I think he'll make a wonderful pet, don't you? Jack was horrified to see Teddy trapped in the Raven King's cage. It's not charming, he said. It's cruel. You better let him go, or else. Yeah, let him go, said Annie. Or else. Or else, said the Raven King. Or else what? With backward jerks of his head, he laughed a raspy laugh. As the king laughed, Jack glanced at the floor under the window. He saw the hazel twig. He moved toward it. The Raven King caught sight of him. His laugh stopped abruptly. Cree-caw, he croaked to one of his bodyguards. Jack dashed for the twig, but before he could grab it, the king's bodyguards had swooped across the floor and picked it up the twig in his beak. As the raven carried it up to the window, Jack noticed one of his tail feathers was bent. Jack, look, it's Rock, said Annie. She called up to the bird. Rock, Rock! From his perch above the window, the raven looked down at Annie. Rock, it's me, Annie, she said. I helped you when the people in the village threw stones at you. Remember? What nonsense, said the Raven King. Bring me the stick, bird. Rock didn't move. Gripping the hazel twig in his beak, he stared down at Annie. Give the twig to Jack, Rock, she said, so he could change Teddy back into a boy. So that ugly little stick is a magic wand, is it? Said the Raven King. Bring it to me, bird, now. Don't do it, Rock, said Annie. Don't let him boss you around anymore. The raven stared at Annie for a moment with his dark brown eyes. He looked at the Raven King. He looked back at Annie. Then he swooped down and dropped the hazel twig at his feet. Jack grabbed it. Traitor! The king shrieked at Rock. You'll pay for this! He lunged toward the raven. Rock tried to escape, but the king grabbed him by the throat. Jack had to save Rock. He pointed the twig at the Raven King's back and shouted, Oh, hazel twig from hazel tree, make him what you want it to be. A deafening wind roared through the window. The blinding light flashed. Then all was clear. The Raven King had vanished. His cape lay on the floor. Rock hopped away unharmed. From under the cape came a hoarse cry. Awk! And he lifted the cape, and uncovering a tiny raven. Oh, she said softly. The bird stretched out its scrawny neck. Awk! He croaked again. Hello yourself, said Annie, smiling. She stroked the downy feathers of the creature's head. Then she looked up at Jack. How'd you come up with that rhyme? It just came to me, said Jack. I knew I had to save Rock, but I didn't want to hurt the Raven King. I think I actually felt sorry for him. So you helped him get what he finally wanted to be, said Annie. You turned him into a baby raven. Yeah, said Jack. Now he can live his whole life as a bird. Rock flew up to the window ledge. He looked around at all the ravens. It was clear he had become their new leader. Grow, grow, Rock croaked. He stepped aside. The raven troops began leaving the nursery, one by one. Two of them escorted their new member of their flock as he timidly flapped his small wings. Rock was the last to leave. He stared at Jack and Annie with a long gaze. Then he lifted off the ledge and flew away into the light of the silver dawn. Chapter 12, A New Day. Queek! A little croak came from the cage on the floor. "Teddy!" cried Annie. "We almost forgot you," said Jack. "Quick!" Teddy croaked again. "Let me change him back," Annie said to Jack. "Okay, but let me get out of the way first," said Jack. He handed Annie the hazel twig and then quickly stepped out over to the side. Annie moved closer to Teddy's cage. She closed her eyes and thought for a moment. Then she waved the wand over the cage and said, "Oh, hazel twig from hazel tree, make him Teddy, set him free!" There was a mighty roar, a blast of heat, and then a blaze of light. Then Teddy's cage was gone, and Teddy was a boy again, sitting on the floor. "Yay!" said Annie. "Nicely done," said Teddy. "Thanks." "Welcome back," said Jack. He and Annie helped Teddy stand up. Teddy shook his arms and his legs. "Ah," he said, "'tis good to be human again. And now we must help the Duke's family. Where's the diamond?" "We lost it," said Annie. "Yeah, I had it in my beak," said Jack, "but I must have dropped it when Annie changed us back into ourselves." "Don't worry," said Teddy. "It must be here somewhere." The three of them got on their hands and knees and started crawling around the floor of the nursery. There was no sign of the diamond. Suddenly, Jack heard Teddy gasp. "Oh my," Teddy whispered. "Look." He was staring at the corner. The diamond of destiny was rising from the basket of wool by the spinning wheel. "The ghost girl must have hid it when the Raven King came," whispered Annie. The diamond moved slowly toward Jack and stopped in front of him. Jack held out his hand, and the diamond settled into his palm. "Thank you," Jack said to the ghost girl. "I'll put it back in its place now." Carefully holding the diamond, Jack crossed the room. Annie pulled the tapestry aside, and Jack opened the golden door of the cabinet. He looked one last time at the shining stone. "I really felt brave when I was carrying this diamond," he said softly. "Jack," said Annie, "you were pretty brave just now without it." "Indeed you were," said Teddy. Jack smiled. He carefully put the diamond of destiny back into its place and closed the golden door. Then Annie covered the cabinet once more with the tapestry. The air in the nursery grew warmer. A girl began to take shape beside Teddy. She wore a white nightgown. She had dark curly hair. She was about Teddy's age. At the chess table, two boys took shape. They looked just alike. They were twins about Annie's age. At first, the children were a bit pale and cloudy. Slowly, they grew more and more visible until they were solid and rosy-cheeked. At the same time, a large brown dog became visible by the door. He barked and ran to the girl. "Oliver!" she cried. She hugged him. Then she looked at Jack, Annie, and Teddy. She gave them a big smile. "Hello," she said. "Hi," said Annie. Are you the three of you the only people in the castle?" No. Everyone is here too," said the girl. "But they were all asleep when the Raven King stole the diamond." "We were supposed to be asleep too, but sometimes we like to sneak out of our beds and play. We were playing hide and seek when I found the secret door behind the tapestry. I wanted to get a better look, so I put it on the window ledge to catch a good look. Then Tom and Henry started playing chess." She pointed to the boys. Gwendolyn started spinning," said Tom, "and Oliver went down to the great hall for scraps. That's when the Raven King swooped down and stole the diamond," said Gwendolyn. "Before we could even go tell our mother and father, we began to fade away." "Mother, father," said Tom, as if he just remembered their parents. We must wake them, Gwendolyn." "I know," she said. "We shall go upstairs and wake them at once." Since they were sleeping, I suspect they never knew they were even invisible. Gwendolyn took her brother's hands, and the three of them started out of the nursery. At the door, she looked back at Jack, Annie, and Teddy. "Thank you for helping us," she said, "whoever you are." The Duke's children then slipped out of the nursery. Oliver grabbed his bone and bounded after them. Jack handed the hazel twig to Teddy. Listen, he said. I don't think this is something that kids should play with, even sorcerer kids. You'd better give this back to your cousin. Hey, perhaps that is a good plan, he said. He grinned impishly and as he slipped the twig back into his pocket. Then he gestured toward the door. Shall we? Jack and Annie nodded. Teddy picked up his lantern and blew out the candle. Then he led them all out of the castle nursery into the hallway. As they started down the stairway, several servants rushed by. Ring the bells, one said. Bring water for the Duke and Duchess, said another. We're getting a late start today, said a third. Jack, Annie, and Teddy kept winding down the stairway, past the great hall, past the armor room, down the entrance keep, and as they stopped into the courtyards, bright sunlight shone on the castle towers. The bells began to ring. Roosters crowed, horses neighed, servants were making a big cooking fire. A blacksmith was pounding in the anvil. A milkmaid was hauling her pails. In the bright daylight, Jack, Annie, and Teddy walked through the busy courtyard. They passed through the gatehouse and crossed the wooden bridge. When they got to the other side, they looked back. Archers now stood at the tops of the castle walls. Teddy waved to them. Then he turned to Jack and Annie. Order has returned to the castle, he said. Our mission done. Laughing, they all ran through the patch of trees toward the small village. As they hurried along the dirt path past the cottages, they saw villagers in their doorways. They were staring at the direction of the ringing bells. Old Maggie, the old woman, grinned toothlessly at the three of them. The bells are ringing again, she said in a creaky voice. Yes, said Jack. The boys and the girl and the hound are all back. There's nothing to be afraid of anymore. The whole castle is alive and well. Jack, Annie, and Teddy left the village and headed toward the woods. As they walked through the fallen leaves, sunlight filtered through the tree branches. Merlin's words echoed in Jack's mind. You are about to enter a tunnel of fear. Proceed onward with courage, and you will come out into the light. Jack looked around. The forest was bright with the most beautiful glow Jack had ever seen. Chapter 13. Jack and Annie's Magic. Jack, Annie, and Teddy crunched through the fallen leaves until they came to Merlin's oak. They found the hidden door near the rope ladder. Teddy pushed on the bark. The door opened. One by one, they slipped into the candlelit hollow of the tree trunk. Merlin was sitting in his tall wooden chair. So you restored order to the castle, he said calmly. Yes, sir, said Teddy. Had to use a bit of magic, but now all is well. Your rhyming must have improved, Merlin said to Teddy. Teddy grinned sheepishly. Well, to be truthful, the real magic was not in my rhymes. It was the magic of Jack and Annie's courage and kindness that saved the day. And saved me, too. Indeed, said Merlin. Ace, said Teddy. They have a magic as powerful as any sorcerer's rhymes or enchanted hazel twig. Merlin raised a bushy eyebrow. Enchanted hazel twig, he said. 'Tis only a figure of speech, said Teddy quickly. Merlin turned to Jack and Annie. I thank you for your help, he said. All the realm of Camelot thanks you. You're welcome, they said. Merlin stood up. Come along, my boy, he said to Teddy. I'll help you speed back to Morgan now. My research is done. We must return these rare books to Morgan's library. He reached down and picked up a stack of ancient-looking books from the floor. He piled them into Teddy's arms. Teddy turned awkwardly with his books. Then he and Jack and Annie followed Merlin out of the heart of the oak. The sun had risen higher into the sky. The woods were still. Teddy peered over the tops of the books. I suppose we must say goodbye, he said to Jack and Annie. When will I see you again? Asked Annie. When do thee calls, I suppose, said Teddy. He looked at Merlin. The magician smiled. Will you be able to find your way home all right? Teddy asked them. Oh, sure, said Jack. The treehouse will take us back. He looked up at the tree's house at the top of the oak. A sudden gust of wind rustled the tree leaves. Jack and Annie turned back to Merlin and Teddy, but they were gone. Bright yellow leaves swirled and danced in the spot they had been standing. Wow, said Annie. Yeah, said Jack. Well, said Annie, sighed. Onward. Homeward, said Jack. Annie started up the rope ladder. Jack followed. They climbed inside the treehouse. Merlin's leaf invitation was fluttering off the floor. Before it could blow out the window, Annie grabbed it. She pointed towards Frog Creek. I wish we could go there, she said. The wind started to blow. The treehouse started to spin faster and faster. Then everything was still. Absolutely still. Jack opened his eyes. He and Annie sat quietly on the floor of the treehouse. For a moment, Jack looked out the window. High overhead, a bird was soaring through the dusky sky. Jack could hardly believe that just a little while ago he had been a bird himself. Ready to go home, said Annie. Jack nodded. There was no way to explain what just happened to them. He thought there was no way to even talk about it. Annie carefully placed Merlin's autumn leaf in the corner of the treehouse, next to their royal Christmas invitation. Then she and Jack climbed down the ladder and started through the woods. In the gathering dark of All Hallows Eve night, nothing seemed very spooky. Jack knew all the trees. He knew the familiar path out to the street. As he and Annie headed toward home, 3 creatures stepped out into the sidewalk in front of them. A hideous witch, a grinning skeleton, and a huge hairy eyeball. The creatures cackled and rattled and hissed. Jack and Annie laughed. Oh, brother, said Jack. Good costume, said Annie. Jack and Annie crossed their yard and climbed their front steps. You ready to go trick-or-treating, said Annie. Jack pushed his glasses into place. You know, I think I'll maybe stay home this year, he said, and help Mom and Dad give out the treats. Yeah, maybe I will too, said Annie, but I think I'll wear my vampire princess costume anyway. Jack smiled. Cool, he said. Then he and Annie slipped inside their warm, cozy house. They closed the door against the dark of All Hallows Eve. The end.